The following clip is from the North to South Show, live every Monday and Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, where we talk SEC football everything. We'd love to have you out next show, but for now, hit the like button down below, hit the subscribe button, and enjoy this clip. So the Georgia Bulldogs, I think it's a tale of two tales, especially if you talk to Georgia Bulldogs fans compared to talking fans outside of college football, because if you talk to most Georgia Bulldog fans, I think they'd say if you had JT Daniels the whole season, first of all, for sure, you would have beat Florida. Heard that a bunch of times. If Georgia had JT Daniels playing at quarterback at that game, Georgia would have won easily. And maybe even a playoff contender. Let's say you have JT Daniels in that game against Alabama. How does that shape out? Let's say Georgia gets a second crack at Alabama. Even though, let's say, Georgia loses the first matchup against Alabama. Let's say JT Daniels has a huge game against Alabama in the SEC championship and is able to win there. Georgia's now a playoff team. Lots of different things now. You talk to Florida fans, and Florida fans will, I don't want to say respectfully disagree, but they'll disagree all right about the fact if JT Daniels was playing in that Florida game that it would have made a difference. But what I want to talk about here is, how about Georgia for this season? Because a reason why I'm so high on Georgia this season, and the fact that I have them, I've made it very clear that I have them winning the SEC East this year. But I think that Georgia fans would agree with me to say that Georgia is not just looking for an SEC East title. They're not just looking for an SEC championship. They want to get back to the playoffs. It's as simple as that for Georgia, and I feel confident they could do that this year. I picked them. If you go back into my early college football playoff predictions video, I had Georgia as my number 4 seed. Now, things have changed. I'm starting to think this over, but I want to kind of talk about, can and is Georgia a serious playoff contender, or are they just frauds? Are they fakes, or are they frauds, or are they just guys who are trying to make it into the, are they just guys who say they can make it into the playoffs but aren't doing anything? Okay, so obviously you look at Georgia, and this team is successful at the running back position. I think that there's no questions asked that Georgia's strength is going to be the running back position for this season. Like the team I just talked about in Texas A&M and said that they could be a contender for the West next year, Georgia has just as good of a running back room, led by Zamir White and led by James Cook. Another reason why I'm really high on Georgia this season is they're bringing back an experienced quarterback in JT Daniels. There are a lot of teams, especially in the SEC, that lost their quarterback this season. You look at Alabama, you look at Florida, you look at Texas A&M, you look at guys like that who lose their starting quarterback and have to bring in a new young guy to be the starter. It's different. It's so much different when you have an experienced guy at the helms for your Georgia Bulldogs this season. So that's another season of why I'm really looking out that Georgia could be a potential playoff contender this year. There's still some things, don't get me wrong, still some things for sure that I think JT Daniels needs to work on. I think Georgia as a whole in their offensive scheme need to let him air the ball out more. Tons of just short plays. I know Georgia loves to just have they just go start out with the rushing game all the time and the little screen passes and the little check downs and everything like that. Georgia really, really needs to let JT Daniels air the ball out, go for a lot more 20-plus yard plays if they want Georgia to be successful this season. If you want JT Daniels to be a Heisman contender and be known as one of the best players in all of college football and potentially be a top 10 pick. Hint, talk about my 2022 mock draft that I'm going to post tomorrow. I have JT Daniels going in the top 10. Now, it all depends on how he does this season, but if things are supposed to go like how I expect them to, JT Daniels will be a top 10 pick. The team, I'm not going to spoil that yet. You can go and watch the video when it comes out. The defense, I think, is the strength for Georgia, and where Georgia always really has a consistent defense, and I think that's why I'm so high on Georgia this year. There are so many teams that just are not good on defense at all, especially in the SEC. Like, I'm even questioning Bama this year. There's so many holes in teams like Ole Miss. Even though LSU has the talent all over the field, I still feel like LSU defensively, especially last year, really, really struggled to get going on the defensive side of the ball. Georgia's a team I feel really good about. Texas A&M is a team I feel really good about on the defensive side of the ball, and Oklahoma is another team I really feel good about on the defensive side of the ball. And as much as I hate to say it, because we are going to get into this a bit later when we break down the Georgia and Clemson game, and you can see I'm a big Gamecocks fan behind me, Clemson's defense is pretty good. I have to be honest and say that. So this Georgia defensive line, I look at guys like Davis, I look at guys like Wyatt, I look at guys like Walker. They're going to have to dominate on the defensive front for Georgia. That is the strength of this defense. I think the defense is pretty good this season, and they're definitely going to be a strength of this team as a whole, but especially the defensive line. I look at the secondary, and you lost some big guys last year. You lose Eric Stokes, you lose LeCount, you lose a ton of good guys in that secondary, and it's going to be a bit iffy. I'm not saying that there's not talent back there for Georgia this season, but I just don't think that the experience is there yet, and it might take some time. And when you have a big opponent like Clemson straight out of the gates, your secondary is going to have to step up in that game. And more importantly, you're going to really have to rely on your defensive line to get after the quarterback so you don't have any deep ball threats each and every single time. The SEC East, I'll admit, is wide open this year for Georgia for the taking. I honestly think Missouri might be the second best team in the SEC East. Again, Florida's going to be the favorite. Florida's my favorite right now, but I slowly talk myself into Missouri honestly being the second best team in all the SEC East, because they always seem like a team in those down years for the division. They're always near the top. You got Connor Baselick, who won the SEC Freshman of the Year last year. He's going to have a big season this year. I love Missouri's defense. They were really good last year. Yes, they do lose their leader, Nick Bolton, but still as a whole, I think Missouri will still be really good defensively. Florida, again, is a question. How will Emory Jones play? How will the receiving corps do? Well, you're losing Kadarius Toney, you're losing Freddie Swain, you're losing Kyle Pitts, you're losing Kyle Trask, you're losing so many different guys out there. How will Florida do defensively is also a big question. My South Carolina Gamecocks, I'm through the moon about them this year because we got a new coach in, and I just love the culture and everything being built around them. I'm not saying that the Gamecocks are going to go out and win the East this year, but I definitely think that they're going to shock some people in some stages of the game. Kentucky is an unknown, especially at the quarterback position. Do we have Gatewood or do we have Bo Allen going in at quarterback in Kentucky? You look at Vanderbilt bringing in Clark Lee. Ken Seals is going to be the quarterback. They have been the doormat of the SEC East for a while, and then finishing up with Tennessee, which is kind of a gong show right now, if I'm being honest. I think that they have some really, really good quarterbacks down there in Tennessee, but the team as a whole, especially defensively, I think might be a challenge this season, and offensively, although I do think whoever Tennessee brings in at QB, whoever plays for them, is going to do good. I think that, I hate to say it, because it scares Georgia fans as much as it should hype them up, because this is college football. This is the regular season. Most people watch the college football for the regular season, where you look at sports like college basketball, where most people watch it for just the postseason. You're not going to have every single person in America watching the Gator Bowl like you will have every single person in America watching any given first-round March Madness game. It's just how it is. But the first regular season game for Georgia is the biggest game of the year, and it is against Clemson, and it will have massive, massive, massive playoff implications on how Georgia does for the rest of the season. I'm telling you, if Georgia wins that game, I could see them shooting up to the best team in the nation. Number one, depending on how bad they beat Clemson, if they do it and they look really good doing it, I'd have no problem seeing Georgia at the top. If they lose, you are going to have to win out the rest of your SEC slate. No mistakes. A close game may even hurt you, if I'm being honest. You're going to have to win the SEC East. You're going to have to beat Bama, who I think Bama's still going to be the best team for the West. Maybe Texas A&M will be in there. And then that's your way to the playoffs. So I think a lot of what you're going to see for Georgia, and if they are a serious playoff contender this season, is going to be based on the first game. Do I think right now Georgia's a playoff contender? Yes, I do. I think that they are the second best team in the SEC. I'd easily say that. And I think always the SEC should get two teams in, because especially this season, I think Clemson's not going to be as good as they were last year. I don't think Ohio State will. I think Oklahoma's made huge improvements. So right now, my best teams, I got Alabama at 1, Oklahoma 2, and then I got like Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State like mixed up there. So I think that Georgia is right now a playoff contender. I don't want to say frauds, but you're going to see a lot of what this Georgia Bulldogs team is in that first game of the season.